Right, well I'm at St Florence Gate and I'm on the free city walking tour. Okay, so this is the Barbican, which is on the outer perimeter of the city wall, and it was used to stop people from invading the old city before they even got to the city wall itself. Apparently the door was set to an angle, so when enemies got inside they got confused as to where they were, and then they were shot by bow and arrows from marksmen up in the galleys up there. Incidentally, I've just learned that the city wall, which you can see the grey part of the city wall down at the bottom, is the original from the 14th century. It was built to stop the Mongolians from invading and burning down the city, which they'd done 3 times prior to it being built. It was the Swedish that then came here in the 17th century, once cannons had been invented, and it took the cannonball to breach this wall. We're now heading into the main market square. It's pretty incredible because of all the wars that have taken place in this city, the old part of the city here is still completely intact, mainly due to the Polish not having a resistance against World War II and the invasion of Nazi Germany. Unlike Warsaw, another Polish city which did have an uprising, and the city got completely destroyed in German bombing. Here there was none of that, apart from some individual acts of disobedience. Nothing major happened, and the city is still intact because of it.
This was a very nice one, really. You had good luck today because he played it like in a little bit artistic way, a little bit slower. Very, very nice. So 10 out of 10 definitely.
Well, if you wondered what was going on there, apparently that's an old Polish tradition for a guard to play the bugle out the top of the Market Square church. Since medieval times they've been doing that, to signify the opening and the closing of the old city gates, so that they would essentially let people in at the beginning of the day and close it down at the end of the day based on the sound of that bugle being played. Well, it's a beautiful day here, coats off, it's pretty warm. That's the town hall there with the cloth hall behind it, and we're on our way out of the market square now. Don't want to lose anybody. This is Pope John Paul II, and this is where he lived in Krakow between 1951 and 1967. This was his house. I don't know if the whole thing was, but he certainly lived in this building. Quite a nice location, very close to the castle and the cathedral. This is the main theatre building here in Krakow. This is just one of the smaller squares here in the old town. I'm heading into the market square, see if I can get access to the underground tunnels that are below it. And also take a look inside the cloth hall, because even though I've seen it from the outside, I've not yet been in. This is St Mary's Basilica, which is what I'm below. So over 1,000 years, basically the market square kept being repaved and recobbled to the point where there was probably 5, 6 or 7 layers of surfacing on it, and that's all they've kind of done here, is they've dug down into the original surfaces. So you can make out the original walls of the cloth hall down here in medieval times, and you can even make out what I believe are windows there. It's incredible to think that during medieval times this would have been the cloth hall right here, this would have been the walls, and I'd have been walking at street level. Okay, so I'm inside the cloth hall, and this is what it looks like. Just rows of shops and stands. It's like an indoor market. Well, I've just left the old town and I'm now in Krakow Cemetery, which is a couple of kilometres walk from the centre. It's a huge place. It's some incredible gravestones here. I think one thing that grabs you right from the get-go is just how many flowers and wreaths and lights, candles there are on the graves, on the tombstones. Well, apparently these larger structures are all called tombs, and the graveyard was created in around about 1800, before, or whilst I should say, the country was part of Austria-Hungary. Right, so I'm in the heart of the Jewish quarters now. This was the original synagogue in Krakow. It was built in the 1400s, and as you can see, it's built below street level, because in those days it had to be built below the level of local churches, which is quite interesting. It's now a museum, by the way, so it no longer operates as a synagogue, but instead operates as a museum to Jewish culture and customs. This is the enamel factory ran by Oskar Schindler during World War II. This is the scene in Schindler's List where people are throwing their suitcases from the balcony. It was actually filmed right here. There's the balcony. I'm now standing in a place called Ghetto Hero Square, which is the former Jewish ghetto here in Krakow. Named that because in 1939, when the Nazis invaded Poland, it sent all of the Jews that lived in the city to this very small area south of the river. In 1939, when the Nazis invaded, there was 65,000 Jews that lived in this city. By 1945, there were just 3,000. So quite a historical area. And I'm going to head now back in towards the Jewish quarter and then through into the old town. Got to give them their due. It's 10 o'clock. They're still going.
W ogóle jak mieliśmy 18, to spoko, ale